All right, so the Warriors season preview here. I don't know about you, and you have to tell me what you are feeling about this because I'm kind of giddy about this team, and I know there are lots of warning signs when it comes to age. But when I look at this basketball team, I go, man, this is going to be a very enjoyable team with a couple of caveats. The main one being age and injuries. And I think secondly, I think everyone's penciling OKC in as like they're just going to go back to back. And historically in the NBA, that has been very hard to do. Some of it is because when you finally go through that championship season, you're not just playing 82 games, you're playing 82 games and then plus. And then when we get to the conference finals and the finals, those are kind of like 1.5 games versus just a normal regular season game. And so Oklahoma City, all of the things that you would believe a back-to-back contender would have, they have it. They have the youth, they have the depth, but historically, it is kind of a rare thing for teams to just easily cruise back-to-back. 2016 Warriors, they were the best regular season team of all time, and they still fell in the finals. So I think some of it for me is like just the history of the NBA tells me that Oklahoma City will be good, but they're going to have to probably get through some hoops that maybe they didn't have to get through last year on their rise to their first championship. So some of it is that. And then I think some of it is like, I just really want to celebrate whatever this end of Steph Curry's career is. Now, you are lucky enough to really where you first started watching basketball, he's just been in your life like the whole time. And for me, like he is the greatest Golden State Warrior that I've ever seen, like bar none. But also I had, 30 years watching basketball before he came into our lives. Not quite 30, probably, probably closer to 25. But am I like over the top here with my thinking, with my excitement, with what this Warriors team can be? And we'll break down why I believe that. But what is your initial reaction to me being so excited about this team?
I think your excitement's in the right place, although I think this OKC team is different than most championship teams. Like I feel like I gotta imagine, I don't have the stats, but like I've gotta imagine they're like the youngest out of, if you look at the core of SGA, J-Dub, and Chet, like in terms of winning a championship, you can go down like the Jokic one, or the Boston one was relatively young, but of course Tatum's Achilles that. But I guess I'm more so saying like I think it's sometimes difficult from a myriad of reasons, but also like injuries. And you think about the Bucks one where it's Giannis, Drew, and Middleton, maybe a little bit older of a trio. I just think OKC has a youthful trio with a lot of assets. I don't know their cap situation off the top of my head, but I could tell you right now, it's not like Clippers, Warriors, like whoever else is up there. Like I'm sure they have a little bit of comfortability, just in terms of the rest of the teams. I just feel like there could be like if Prestes has done all this and accumulated all these assets, like I just think they're so dangerous from a roster like accumulation perspective. Like they could just get someone at the deadline just like the Warriors did, but like they can like add it to what they already have. And I don't know. I had a little spiel, I think, when towards the end of the season where I'm just like looking at what they have on paper, how young they are, the assets they have. It's like it would be pretty hard to mess this up, like what they've done so far. Just like, oh, Aaron Wiggins and a first will take your bad contract, but like good player, but like they just have so many options, whereas some of these other teams, like the Warriors, don't have many options. We're just like Kamingo or bust for a trade, and they kind of have all these different avenues they can go. Just basically getting Caruso for Giddy, right? There's so many of those they can do. So, I look at it like I think it's hard to go back to back in this league, but I think from the championship winners that we've seen in recent history, they're the ones that I think have the best chances to do it, and maybe have like a 3 championship in 4 years type of thing that the Warriors did. So, but I don't want to completely get rid of your excitement. I just think OKC is so good. But I think the Warriors are a top 3 contender in the West. I think it's them, Denver, and OKC. And I think that, what the fans we've been saying, like, get Steph a two, and then they get Jimmy Butler, and then you see what could have happened in the playoffs had Steph not gone down. Like, now you have a full season. Jimmy Butler's integrated in training camp. Sure, he's not playing right now, but just being there and getting more chemistry and learning, more stuff about the organization and getting camaraderie with your teammates, just all those little things that you kind of don't get when you just get thrust into a team in February or January or whenever it was. Like, that accumulated, and also with like Horford, and Horford just seems like a perfect fit in Golden State, just with kind of knowing what he can bring and knowing what they need. Like, there's no like, I need to get 20, I need to start. Like, Kerr said that on TK's podcast. It's such a perfect fit. So we've said it before, but this team, game one of Minnesota, if I look back in time, like, I remember we were worried because we went 7 in Houston, and Minnesota went 5 or 6 in LA, and Minnesota had all this rest. They're a younger team. We were worried that the Warriors going to 7 and then having to play 2 days later in Minnesota, get on a flight. Like, we were worried that was not going to be great for the Warriors. That game one was not going to be good for the Warriors, and they won it, and they won it pretty convincingly. And had Steph not gone down, I'm sure everyone is saying that they would have won the series. So I think your excitement's in the right place. I just think that OKC is so damn good. Like, that's it. And also, really quick, I'll add in one more thing. We've had a Denver like hump we haven't been able to get over since we beat them in the playoffs in 2021 or no, sorry, 2022 or 23. It literally was like they had a regular season streak against us after we beat them in the playoffs in round 1 when we won the championship, up until like one of the last games of the season this past year. They had beaten us for like 2 or 3 years straight. You think about those games with the Jokic half-court buzzer beater against Looney. We almost get it, and then JK leaks to Shams that he's not happy or whatever. Like, that's all been like Denver wins and demoralizing wins. I think there was a Christmas game, or there was something close to a Christmas game, where I remember CP on the team and Jokic just getting ridiculous foul after ridiculous foul. I think they are also, someone who I want to see us match up against with this iteration of the team, and now they've also gotten better. So I think it's those 3 teams for me, though. I know Houston's probably one people want to hear. Yeah, they're 4 for me. So, and this isn't a regular season prediction. This is just who I think the contenders are. I don't think the Warriors are finishing top 3. I think Houston's finishing top 3, maybe 2. I don't think the Warriors,
even without VanVleet.
Yes.
So, okay, so let's kind of break it down. We're going to go through the roster, because I think going through this roster is also what got me excited, because they have so much depth. Now, the problem is the depth isn't balanced. It is heavy on old players and heavy on young players. You don't have those like kind of middle guys who are kind of just, in their own and getting into their prime. So, starting 5, somewhat, it could be this. We don't know if it's going to be this, but Steph, B-Pods, Jimmy Butler, Draymond, Al Horford. That is a very solid starting 5. On the bench or on the injured list, at least coming into the season, DeAnthony Melton, who we really liked last year because of his fit, but then he got hurt, and he is actually a wild card. I know a lot of people are just thinking you're just going to be able to pencil him in, but look, he, ACL injury, he's got to come back, he's got to get healthy. Thankfully for the Warriors, they have some pieces that will allow him to come back slowly. One of those pieces, Seth Curry, who is also kind of on this weird roster exhibit contract or whatever they call it, in that he's going to miss probably the first month of the season at least before they can add him to the roster. Buddy Hield, obviously, was a super sub in the playoffs for us. He kind of came into his own, and maybe he's kind of that one guy who maybe is like in his prime, possibly. Buddy, I don't know. Maybe. Well, we'll see. Pat Spencer is back on this roster, a Steve Kerr favorite. If this dude could only shoot the basketball, he's so fun to watch. He's so gritty. And then teams go, okay, enough of your hustle, enough of your, trying to challenge all of our guys. Shoot the ball. And he's like, sorry, I can't really shoot it that well.
Yeah.
Gary Payton II, he's back. We know what he is. He's exactly what he's always been. He's going to play some minutes defensively. He's going to hit some corner threes, and then there's going to be moments where he can't catch a basketball or dribble a basketball, and then he's going to be hurt. That's just the GP2 experience. We love him because of his heart and because he's the little big man catching alley-oops, but it's pretty predictable what he's going to offer. Then we have a young rookie who I'm kind of interested. Now, we only have a couple of preseason games, and yesterday's game I couldn't even watch because it was on Fubo and League Pass. I flipped on my Hulu live television, and I'm like, where's the game? And I click on it, and I go, oh, there it is. And I start to watch it, and I'm like, wait, this is last week's Portland game. This is not this week's Portland game. I'm like, Jimmy's not supposed to play this game. What happened? And so I go, okay, so I have the wrong game. So we didn't get to see it, but supposedly Will Richard had an excellent game, and Steve Kerr was like, yeah, like, I'm not scared to play this guy. Like, he plays basketball the right way. Though coming into this season, I'm guessing, even behind Guy Santos. I don't even know what their roster looks like. He's probably number 14 on the roster. But it is kind of cool to see a young backcourt player who they believe in, who's athletic and who seems, he's a 4-year college player. He's like almost the same age as JK. Like,
I was about to say, well, how old is he?
Yeah, JK is like a few months older than him.
Yeah.
And so, he's got some miles under his belt, but at the same time, being 23 in the league as a rookie is not best case scenario for superstars either, but it seems like he's going to be of some value at some point during the season. And then backing up Jimmy Butler, we have JK and we have Moses Moody. It feels like these guys have been in our lives for much longer than just these 5 years or whatever it's been, 4 years and change. But, we can go back to, years ago with the Kamudi watch. Like, these are our guys. Like, we've been down with JK. We've been down with Moses Moody. We desperately have been wanting JK to take it to the next level. He has not. And he probably won't in a Warriors uniform. We kind of have to be okay with that based on his new contract. Moses Moody is a grind guy. We saw maybe the best that he had played up to this point last year when they started him at power forward. He's Moses. He's everything that we've known him to be, and he's not everything that we've also known him to be. But still, easy. These are our guys. We root for them. And they're going to be bench depth pieces. Moses actually might get some starting time when Jimmy or Draymond goes to the bench. So backup bigs, Trace Jackson Davis, and our guy Guy Santos, and backing up also from the power forward and center position for Trace. So I think that's 14 players that I just mentioned.
Did you say Quentin Post?
Oh, no. Actually, no, I didn't even say Quentin Post. Quentin Post would be 14. So let me make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Well, you said Seth, and he doesn't count.
But I'm just talking bodies who will get minutes this year. I think that's 16 players.
What about Tuhi?
Yeah, and he's going to be on the two-way. I wonder
Jackson Rowe a two-way.
I wonder if we should go to any Santa Cruz games this year with Richard and Tui playing. But the point is they have so many players and guys that you can imagine because of the idea that they're going to want to rest some guys. Some guys will be injured. That, it wouldn't be surprising to see Will Richard get a little bit of run mid-season. Seth Curry all of a sudden, in a closeout. Offensively spreading the floor. It's going to be interesting to see how Kerr mixes and matches this stuff, but I think he's also thinking, like, at the same time, we can be a little bit more forceful in maybe resting Steph on a back-to-back or resting Jimmy on a back-to-back. We know Al is probably not playing back-to-back, so that's where that's where you're sliding in Quentin Post or Trace Jackson Davis. So that's the roster. And I think the biggest positive for me is it's like the same. It's the same team coming back, with the exception of Al. Everyone else, you're not bringing back Looney. That's going to be something that the Warriors are going to have to get used to. He's a little bit of a, when an emergency hit the red button kind of guy for Steve Kerr. And so they'll have to learn how to play without Looney. But that roster is essentially the same roster that they went into Houston and Minnesota last year, and we had thought that, man, this team could play with all of these teams. So I think that is my biggest reason why I'm so excited about it, because of what we saw at the end of last season. What are your thoughts about the roster, and does having too many players hold them back in any way?
No, it does not. I remember last year, some of like the criticism was like, okay, they have depth, but they have so many like 7 or 8 guys, and not really any like 3 to 5 guys. Where like, like sure they have depth, but it's not like top end depth. It's more like this guy can give you minutes in the playoffs, but like maybe not as, a starter or as like a sixth man. Like this is like a 7th or 8th person off the bench that can give you a run in a playoff game. But I just think the addition of Al, like thinking about that Houston series, how much run Quentin Post had to get because they weren't turning to Loon, and Loon's expressed that he felt like they should have when they played so
Yeah.
much Steven Adams, and Loon was like, that's who I match up against. That's the type of guy I'm good against. Why didn't they play me more against him? But
Felt a little disrespected
he
there.
did, and rightfully so. But they played so much Quentin Post, whereas in this iteration, you could start Dre Horford, but when it matters, you could just flip flop them as the 5. You don't have to turn to Quentin Post or Trace Jackson Davis or Loon, even though you can't anymore. But he did get run in that Houston series. But I just think about that, and like, you don't have to do that anymore. You could just, put Dre at the small ball 5, and then, Horford at the 5, and just keep, mix and matching that. And, you know, I think I I don't know what to think about Melton. Like, I think it's a great addition, and why not? I hope it kind of figures itself out, because I'm not loving the idea of Pat Spence as the backup 1.
Or
I
B
know
Pods as the backup 1.
I don't love that either, but I think he needs to be that for his own like progression. But
But you could see Melton and B Pods
totally, you
handling the
could
basketball
totally see
together.
that.
Yeah,
Yes, but it relies on this guy kind of being good post ACL. Was it ACL?
I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, I like the roster. I think I'm just wondering, like, do they have the guys in case, the stars need to play 60 to 65 games depending on injury or rest? Like, can they string together some wins? And you hope that, JK can help with that, before he gets traded, or if he gets traded. Um, I'm just trying to think of like who can take another step, who could take another leap. Um, and I mean, because it's eyes on the top 3 touted young, quote unquote, young players on the roster, being J.K. Moody and B Pods.
Yeah.
So
I mean, at this point, if you were going to make a guess, you're probably guessing it's Pajemski, right? But at the same time, sometimes he's got a little bit of YOLO in him that it may be too much for him. You kind of want him to be more reserved than he is, but you still want him to be confident, because he can actually make shots for them in ways that they do need it.
yeah, I think there's a potential Moody leap as well, not necessarily from a shot creating perspective. I think we're kind of well past that, but just, I
Hit,
think he had a
hit
good
the three,
3-point
man.
percentage.
Yeah,
But
hit
yeah,
the open three.
just be more reliant there. And then there was some, stuff at the rim I thought he did last year where he's like sneaky athletic because he has these long alarms. Like, there's stuff there. So, and I actually have League Pass. So I watched about near half of the game before we started. And Will Richard did do some cool stuff. He did some stuff that's like, okay, I see why Kerr wanted to give you the start here. Just already recognizing that, hey, I'm a 22-year-old 4-year college player. Like, I'm not gonna try to go the Kuminga route. Like, I recognize that, I need to help where I can help so I can get tick. And that's kind of, the classic Warriors MO with guys who either go undrafted or, go like I don't know. I think of like a poor guy, who already forgetting his name, Anthony Lamb, right? Like just someone who can, someone who's like, I know I know what I'm not, and I'm just here to play hard so I can get minutes on this team. Because if you play hard and you hustle and you cater to Steph, you get minutes on this team. And I think Will Richard is a player who just already kind of has that out the gates. But there's a little bit of like athleticism and potential 3-and-D ability there that you want to see. And so I wonder, like, I feel like Will Richard's a player that's like, okay, you look at him now, he's the 14th man on the roster, but like Steve Kerr might just like on a whim just be like, okay, you're like in the rotation now. But yeah, I'm excited for the season to start. I'm really excited for the season to start.
And we mentioned last time we recorded about how many different places you're going to have to remember how to watch these games, and some of it's going to be on Amazon Prime. I like Amazon Prime in general, the way the app works. Like you could start late, like because I'm a DVR guy. I like to start these games like an hour late, and then I catch up. And instead of taking me 2.5 hours to watch the game, it takes me like an hour and a half instead. And you can do that on Amazon Prime. There's some games that are gonna be exclusive to Peacock, like not even gonna be on NBC. So you're gonna have to be, the rhythm in which I watch this stuff is gonna be a little bit different this year, and I'm gonna have to play around with it.
It's gonna suck.
The NBC games will get captured by my Hulu, so I'll have those on.
That's just what
DVR.
I just want everything captured by Hulu, like it
I know,
usually is.
I know, me too. So, and then of course there's going to be the Bay Area sports games. We're going to see a lot of Fitz and Kalena as per usual. But okay, so now let me get into a little bit more about what it will take for the Warriors to be one of those top 3 teams, like you say. If you go back to 2021, a lot of things had to happen for them to win that championship. One of them was it was the season before Denver was ready to really take it to that next level. And so they caught Denver at the perfect time. And then if you remember the next 2 rounds, it was a not ready for prime time Memphis Grizzlies and a not ready for prime time Dallas Mavericks. It was like before Luka's ascent as well. I mean, Luka was great, but he was kind of a one-man show in that series. So they caught those teams at a great time. There was no other team in the West who's just running away with stuff, and it allowed them to use their veteran wiles when it came to postseason basketball, and they understood how to take advantage of all those series. And then they played a Boston Celtics team that was like 2 years too soon for that Celtics team. But that Celtics team, that series against the Warriors, I believe that that series specifically helped them get to the next level, because there were moments where they went up 2-1 in that series, and I think Celtics fans were very excited. But that's also at the end of that third game where the Celtics won. Iguodala was like, we got them. Like he's like so sure that they were going to win the next 3 games, and they did. So things like that, I believe, do have to happen for the Warriors to get back into the swing of things. Oklahoma City may very well win 68 to 70 games. Will they have the same injury luck come postseason? Will they have any sort of hills that they have to run through or run up that weren't there last season? And that's some of why it's hard to repeat for Denver. Jokic has been awesome. There's been no, I haven't seen anything from him that says he is slowing down at all. I think the Ringer had him number 1 as the best player in this season. So he is always going to be a thorn in their side. It's just the thing. He's a thorn in everybody's side, and they will have to strategically figure out how to beat him. And then for them, I think the thing that would really kill this season is if certain players got hurt at the wrong time, and if more than one player got hurt for an extended period of time. Like if Jimmy and Steph, if we're getting into game 65-70 and they both get hurt and they're hobbling coming into the playoffs, that's just bad news for that team. Well, let's say Steph gets hurt. Steph misses 5 games for whatever reason, middle of the season. Jimmy misses his 8 games, 3 quarters through. And then by the time the playoffs start, they've got that behind them and they're ready to go. Like that would be the way that you could foresee the Warriors being ready come playoff time. And Houston's going to take that growth spurt that they have, and then they're just adding one of the best scorers in NBA history to that team. So I'm not saying this is a cakewalk for the Warriors. I'm not saying the Warriors are winning the NBA championship. I just think that they have a really, really good basketball team, and I'm very interested to see how they compete against these other teams. And if you want to look at the East, Boston is not going to be Boston because they got no Tatum. The Cavs have ascended, I guess you could say, and they've taken their lumps throughout, but they have not convinced me that they are necessarily the team that anybody should be super scared of on the other side. The Knicks, sort of similar. I know Knicks fans are really excited. Jalen Brunson is a problem for everybody, but they haven't proven that they have everything that it takes to be the team to beat either. So I think the East, if you could actually get through the West, it doesn't really seem that hard to get through to actually win it. It may be one of those seasons where it's like, oh, you win the West and the NBA finals is kind of anticlimactic in that way. But again, that's just looking on paper right now. The Cavs and the Knicks and whomever, the Hawks may surprise some people. They could be, a barn burner kind of teams as well. But just the way that I see it on paper today before the season starts. So all of those things really do have to happen, I think, for the Warriors to be in that area of a top 3 or whatever, like you said. But because it's the beginning of the season, nothing has happened yet that can deter you. And I haven't even mentioned Minnesota, by the way. Minnesota's been in the Western Conference Finals 2 years in a row. So they're going to be coming. But that's just the intrigue with this basketball team. And I think they are smartly put together. And a lot of it is going to be injury luck. And I guess before we get to the Valkyrie stuff, what do you have an idea of what having Jimmy Butler on your team for a full season is going to look like?
I don't. I don't know. It just feels like things are different, and I feel like that's just me talking myself into convincing myself that something isn't going to happen. But he's not in a contract year. Like I because there's always this stuff with Jimmy that he's just kind of like he doesn't play that many regular season games. If you look at it, I don't think so. I think we talked about that when we acquired him, but I don't know. Vibes just seem high, man. Like there's no looming extension. Like he got paid, right? Like maybe I think could they extend him this year if they wanted to, but I'm excited. I truly am excited for a full year of Jimmy Butler. Like that hasn't even been a conversation on like talking shows of like, anything that could go bad. Like there was all of last year. Like acquiring Jimmy could be a death sentence to your team. Like he could just raise hell in the locker room. Like what the hell is that? I've seen none of that this year.
Well, he was happy, right? That's part of it. He does the thing. Like his game is everything that the Warriors aren't. Get to the free throw line, right? All 2-pointers, like money in the mid range, like all of those things that he does is like the Warriors don't do very well. So it's almost like he's like the perfect player to put on this team. The last time he played over 60 games, there's been 2 seasons. He played 60 games in 23-24 with Miami, and then he played 64 games in 22-23 with Miami, and then you'd have to go back to 18-19 when he was Minnesota and Philadelphia. He played 65 games. So, I mean, if the Warriors could get 65 games, 70 games out of him, I think they'd be really happy. I think that'd be kind of perfect for them. For him to sit between 12 and 15 games a year, some of it being rest, some of it is going to be some ailment. He plays a very physical style. So there's going to be something injury related, kind of like what happened in the playoffs, right? He falls right directly on his rear end after getting undercut or getting I don't remember, was it an undercut or he got pulled
Yeah,
down or something?
I think it was like a little bit of an accidental undercut.
Yeah. And that's a hard foul, and that's the kind of thing that is going to take out an older player like that. You know, the other thing about Al Horford that I think is going to be so helpful is the less stress on Dre's body playing 5. I think it's gonna be very helpful for him because you remember he's had calf injuries and which leads to like hamstring injuries and lower back injuries, and a lot of that is because he's like a 6'5" dude having to play center. And so hopefully that will allow him to be a little bit more of a free safety in those Al minutes. And we'll see if TJD could do anything there for them in the backup 5 minutes. We know that when Post is in the game, he's not in there to, really help anybody defensively. He's just out there to shoot threes.
He
So
was getting killed by Klingon.
I think if there's one person that I believe will take a step back this year, it is Quentin Post, because I think and it's because I think this team just has a higher idea for where they can go this year versus last year.
Yeah, and then the scout on him is just close out, like,
yeah,
which is valuable, to have them worry about you from 3. That's something nice to have.
All right, last thing, and then we'll go to some Valkyrie stuff. So Jonathan Kuminga, obviously, there's going to be lots of interest in him and where he goes and what they do. I think we were trying to figure out, if he signs, is he here for the long run, or is he going to be on the trade market like immediately? I think there's going to be, Warriors fans, especially Warriors Twitter, they're very perceptive to, they're basketball heads. They know players on the other team. They know contracts. They know certain folks as
Not
far as
all of them on
not
Twitter,
all of
but
them, the smart ones, the good ones.
yeah.
And I do think there's going to be like a list of players that people are going to be circling to add to the team and trade JK. And gets to what you were talking about earlier, is like he's really the only piece that they have. So how do they maximize it? How does Mike Dunleavy does Mike Dunleavy, is he actively like, what is he looking for, do you think, on the folks who he's going to target? Do you think he has like a list of players that he kind of thinks may be available? Is he looking at teams and seeing some teams, if they fall out, if someone gets hurt, if somebody asks out, if someone gets really frustrated? Like what do you think is going to be part of this Kuminga this Kuminga season watch thing? How much of what is Dunleavy going to be doing to like keep an eye on who's the best trade targets?
I mean, I think he's already got a list of names in mind. But I think the NBA is just, it's hard to guess. Like, would you have guessed that the Warriors would have gotten Jimmy Butler, at the trade deadline last year at the price that they got him? Like, some stuff is just like, you can't even account for it. Like, that's how they got Jimmy was like such a steal. And so, that stuff like that can happen and fall into their lap. But I imagine he's got some names that he's kind of just monitoring. But I don't think, like, it's just hard because I think the player you want for Kuminga is like a Kuminga in the sense of he's a young player who is going to give you, a lot of minutes and in the regular season. And hopefully who you get in return is someone who maybe fits the lineup better and can play in the playoffs and won't get benched by Kerr. But in an like ideal, he's young. This is a team full of older players and, one of the oldest rosters in the NBA. What you want is youth. What you want is players that can give you minutes. And while those older guys might need time to sit. So in theory, Kuminga's what you want. But I think just based off what happened with the contract negotiations and just how we've watched his 4 years play out, where it's like Kerr hasn't fully trusted him. And I don't think Kuminga's given him the greatest reasons to fully trust him. But that's just what you want. And I don't think that's what you can get with Kuminga. I don't think there's like a young player swap. I know people have been saying Trey Murphy. Like, I just don't see why New Orleans would want anything to do with JK for Trey Murphy. And maybe someone would say a third team
pick or two involved, don't you think?
Yeah, like you'd give some firsts, but I just don't. I mean, the Pelicans to me have been making moves that don't make sense anyway, so maybe they can make another nonsensical move
Joe
that I
Dumars,
don't get.
right?
Dumars, man. But I just think that's what it is. Like, it's just I think what you want in return, some Kobe White was tossed around. Like, yeah, young player, like that sounds great. But I think you can't. Well, you can, but you gotta be careful about who you get in return for Kuminga, because you want someone that Kerr is going to play and is going to get minutes in the playoffs. But you also
What
don't.
about two-way Wigs?
I would love that.
I think a lot of fans would enjoy that. Not that we miss him necessarily, because with him and Butler together, there's a little bit of
Is
duplication there.
there?
Defensively, probably. Um, Jimmy, like, plus minus always talks about how, for like spacing purposes, Jimmy Butler's best position on the floor with the Warriors might actually be power forward.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and it's not, if it would be different if Wiggs was like a dead eye shooter. He's not. Wiggs would be there to help with your defense, which I think they're going to need help with wings. At some point this year, maybe they'll be so good offensively that they could get away with it. But at some point, they're going to need to stop some really good players, and that may be like if JK wants to put an imprint on this team, that may be where he could do it. But he's actually might be too big to guard some of these guys these days, though.
Yeah, the super small guys, yeah.